Hello all, and welcome to the Random Heroes podcast for Wulven Apprentice Task 5. I am Sean, better known as Preybird, and I have with me my other teammates from Random Heroes. We have...
This is Tom, better known as The Trail for Life.
And Steven, better known as Samshay999.
All right, and we have a really, really good podcast for you today. We're going to be going through a little bit about Wulven Apprentice, and we've got Gondorian, the mastermind behind this whole thing, talking to us a little bit about his motivations. We're going to be talking a little bit about ourselves and what we would each bring to the table for Wulven, as well as going through our experiences so far in the task and in the wider game in general. We also will each be talking about the current game state, you know, the meta in Quick Match around what you can expect to see in certain rating ranges. Tom's got some stuff prepared around Meltdown. We will also have an interview with the Master of Law in Shadow Era, Nacho Cheese. So, let's start with the interview with Gondorian and get a little bit of background around Wulven Apprentice itself.
So, Gondorian, what gave you the idea and first inspired the Wulven Apprentice?
Well, it was a combination of things. Obviously, the TV show, The Apprentice, is quite an inspiration, but that was it. The root of it was that I felt like I needed somebody to take over doing the kind of stuff that I used to do on the forum when I first started out, when I had time and when I wasn't actually employed, you know, trying to keep the community going, coming up with events and things. And so really I wanted a replacement for myself. And then I put the idea to Carl, and he said, yeah, let's replace you straight away. I said, no, I don't want to leave the team. What I said was, I think that, you know, there was somebody like me or an improvement of me who we could bring on and could do the kind of things that I used to do originally when I had more time. And so, yeah, the Wulven Apprentice idea came about, and I think pretty much every task is something which I've ended up doing over the past couple of years. So it's to try and to look for an all-rounder.
How are you enjoying the contest so far?
It's gone really well. When I first pitched the idea and when I first revealed it, I wasn't sure whether people were going to be excited about it, how many people would apply, how the task would go and so on. I think it's going really well and I've enjoyed it a lot, and I'm really pleased with the quality of people that have applied. So yeah, I'm loving it. We should do it for every vacancy. It's taken a long time though, isn't it? But at least at the end we should have pretty high confidence in who we employ. So
well, I mean, it takes like 3 months to film The Apprentice, so you know, it's about the same time.
Yeah, it's not over yet, but we're close.
So, I am Samshay999, and I'm here also interviewing Gondorian. So I have a question for you also. So as we've gone through the Wulven Apprentice, we've kind of been dealing with, ourselves, the contestants, have been dealing with challenges we aren't necessarily used to, or dealing with a lot of kind of having our work in the public eye, too. So there have been a lot of interesting difficulties for us, and we were just curious, as the supervisor, what kind of difficulties are you facing, you know, that you weren't expecting when you kind of went into this?
Wow. As a supervisor, as in keeping track of what the teams are up to feed information to Kyle about who he should eat in his lair, that kind of thing. Well, certainly the amount of conversation within the teams, there's no way I can keep up with it to track everything that everybody says. So Mojumbo has done a fantastic job of monitoring everything you're doing. I'm glad that he's been involved in this aspect. Generally, though, it's gone pretty smoothly. I think, yeah, there haven't been too many difficulties, I don't think. Where Jumbo takes notes, he rates everybody secretly. Yeah.
So another thing we were wondering is, had you been surprised by any of the victims that had been in the lair so far? You know, as we've kind of gone through this, there are only 6 of us left now. The 4 guys that have gone, you know, some of them, it's been kind of interesting to see who's gotten eliminated each task and the different criteria that it's, you know, it's been each time and the situations that have come up, of course.
Well, The Apprentice, if you watch the TV show, sometimes you get surprised. You think that person shouldn't have gone. In this case, I mean, when we picked the 10, we thought you were all candidates to win. So maybe the general public might have thought that Jazz might have lasted a bit longer. I think it depends on what role you have on the team for that particular task that week, and if there's some slip up that causes you to lose, then it is a bit of a lottery, really. There's no guarantee the person who wins it will be, you know, objectively the best person. Is there a way to objectively find out who the best person is? Really, it's just, you know, any of the 10 could win, and we're going to have a very good idea about whoever does win. Hopefully they'll fit into the team really well when they get hired.
Well, what can the public expect from the upcoming tasks?
The last 2, we're on the 5th one now, aren't we? So when they're listening to this, they'll have a pretty good clue as to what the 5th task was. What can they expect for the 6th task? Well, we're kind of ramping things up in terms of like stuff that the design team does, and it'll be card related. It'll be proper design team style stuff. The real design team work, not the podcasts. The podcasts are fun, but proper design team stuff. Then after that, I can't reveal anything else.
Obviously. Well, it sounds interesting, though. I can't wait to see it myself.
Yeah, we're always kind of suspended in suspense between tasks here, where, you know, we're in the Skype chats and things like that, kind of talking about, well, I don't know what's coming. You know, sometimes it's a few days between things, and we kind of have to hurry up and wait for that. But yeah, it's been extremely kind of fun and suspenseful between tasks for sure. So we were wondering, on a little lighter note, your post count on the forums is something to be envied. So, and this is a Praybird original, of course. What is the secret to your success?
In terms of post count, I think probably addiction helps. I mean, I racked up a lot of posts really early on because of my addiction to the game, playing the game, and so on. And then I think it doubled in PFG1 because some of the PFG members that we had were you needed to interact with them quite a lot to keep things under control. And so the more trolls we had in there, the more posts I had to make. And that's why I did about 4,000 posts in 2 months or something. So, you know, I owe a lot of those posts to the unruly people who didn't come back for PFG 2. And then since then, I guess my multi-post streak challenges, they help now and again. If the forum's quiet, then I'll make like 100 posts in a row until somebody does a combo breaker to end it. Yeah, that helps now and again. Running all the organised play stuff as well, that's a lot of posts. You wanted a jokey answer though, didn't you? So, I've got a robot doing half my posts. Yeah, that's it. A cyborg. Like
all right, there you go, everybody. The secret to Gondorian success, cyborg assistance. All right, and while we've got you here, we'll talk about your preferences also. Sure. What is your favorite card? And this is, you know, with the qualifier, aside from Net Trap.
Oof. Well, I'll tell you what, if I could have a deck of just 40 Net Traps, you know, I would. I don't think of a lot of other cards, but when I do, if I'm not playing a hunter deck, then my favorite card of all time, I'm not sure. That's tough. What would you guys say? What are your favorite cards?
If you're going on art alone, I'm partial to Jasmine and her ass, but
Ooh,
that's beyond the...
yeah, Jasmine's nice. Super nice.
Yeah, the Rose Cult Sisters in general are just pretty good. But Mind Control, I've always been partial to Mind Control. How can you not like damage, tempo, and removing a monster all in one card?
Damage, tempo. The tempo is pretty impressive, I gotta say.
I'm quite partial to Knight of the Golden Dawn at the moment. I like him because he can become an absolute tank. And against a shadow player that doesn't have mind control, I mean, if you mind control him and he's got, say, Legend Rises on, obviously he's going to hurt you bad. But if you're against Wulven, like I was the other day in the Twain tournament, then against poor Kip Thorpe, then Knight of the Golden Dawn is a real menace. And I absolutely stomped him in one of those games. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that card at the moment.
Any decks that you prefer to play over anything else, like a favorite hero?
Probably Zaladar, but not in the style that like most play. I like to play cute style and try and do combos and stuff, which usually means that I'm not going to win, but in my imagination before the game, I'm imagining how I'm going to win, and then it all goes wrong. But sometimes things come off, don't they? Sometimes I don't play to every game. I try and win, but winning isn't the main goal for me. It's always fun, and even if I lose, hopefully the other person's happy that they won. So fun more than anything.
Fun, for sure.
It's kind of gutting when you've made an inventive deck and your opponent looks at the hero and goes, "Oh no, not that hero again," and they rage quit or something, and you have to talk them out of it and say, "No, this is an original deck. Don't worry, let's play." That's worked occasionally, but it's kind of sad when you think this is a chance to show them that this hero isn't just this certain way. And it can be played different ways. There's probably a good chance you'll beat me because I've made up this deck and never tested it. Anyway,
and
yeah,
then,
we're going off on a tangent. But...
the most important question of all, because the people need to know, do you still love Cherry Coke?
Yeah, I was drinking Cherry Coke yesterday. I was drinking Pepsi today, though. I'm not like super loyal to the Coca-Cola company. If Pepsi's cheap, then I'll drink Pepsi. I'm partial to Monster Energy, but that's bad for you. Cherry Coke for the win, all the way. I had a Dr. Pepper today as well. I'm a real slut when it comes to fizzy drinks. I guess I'll just go with any. But Cherry Coke is my go-to lady. I love her dearly.
Well, there you have it. Cherry Coke, folks.
Cherry Coke, the best in the contest of Cokes that can be possible. Beating out Pepsi, but hey, sometimes even Gondorian has to go to the Pepsi. So, all right, Gondorian, well, thank you for spending some time with us so we can get a little insight into what goes on in your head as you're making Wulven Apprentice cyborgs.
If you work out what's going on in my head, please let me know, because I'm trying to make sense of it.
I will keep you posted, but at
okay,
least you
cheers,
got
guys.
the chance to try. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
All
Good luck
right.
with the rest of the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gondorian.
We appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks very much to Gondorian for that one. Have to note that he did that call at about 1:30 in the morning, so props to him for being willing to stay up so late to talk to us, and I hope he gets a good rest. Now, we're going to be talking a little bit about ourselves and our own experiences within Wulven Apprentice. So I figure I won't start with myself. I'll start with Betrayal, or Tom. Tom, take it away. What do you bring to the competition, and what would you bring to Wulven as a whole?
Well, I think one thing I'm a business owner, so I definitely have a good mind for business, and marketing is one of my strong points. I didn't have a very big marketing budget when I started, and basically worked my ass off and went door to door to all the businesses around the area or homes and passed out menus and did everything I could to build my business from the ground up. And I bring a lot of hard work and dedication in that area, and I think I could bring that to the table for Wulven. I've played CCGs my entire life. Loved games. Been playing, started playing Magic in alpha beta days, way in ancient times.
Wow, that's pretty old. I didn't start until Ice Age in 4th Ed.
Oh, yeah. A long time ago, I actually have seen the mythical Black Lotus in action.
Ooh.
Yes. I'm old school, to say the least. Been around. I've seen games come and go, pretty much everything. And, I've just fell in love with Shadow Era the first time I played the game. Even though there was only 150 cards out, there was so much depth and strategy involved. It was just a great game that I fell in love with it. And my passion for this game is very, very large. And I love this game. I mean, let's be honest. It was quite a driving force in my now defunct marriage to my ex-wife. Can't say that it was a bad thing, but congratulations, Shadow Air, on that one. But
that's a great claim to fame. Shadow Air ruined my marriage.
Yeah. He's all in on this one. All in.
With Jasmine's Ash, she got jealous. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah, it's hard to compete with. It is
unfair. That's any man's dream threesome right there. But
maybe we should put not safe for work tag on this one.
Yeah, definitely. What happens when you put uncensored on a microphone? I mean, this is kind of what happens.
Good thing is.
But anyway, back on point. Some of the experiences that I've had so far, I think, just getting to meet everyone from around the world was a really cool experience for me, because I'm really into other people's cultures, and it was cool to get to talk to people on a daily basis from around the world. I've always been very interested in Australia, for instance, and to get to talk to yourself, and learn more about the country, it was really cool for me. It was an eye-opening experience to learn a little bit more into how people do things from other parts of the world on a daily basis. That was a really cool experience for me, and I think probably the most touching experience, at least, because I'll never forget learning more about everybody else and how their daily lives are in other parts of the globe. That was really cool for me, very eye-opening.
Yeah, that's one of the big driving forces for me too. In my guild in ETC, I've got guys from all over the world, and I've got friends from the States, I've got friends in Europe, Croatia, Turkey, everywhere. So it's like, yeah. But anyway, Steve, what about yourself?
So for me, this has kind of been, I've learned a lot doing this, but at the same time, I think that when I came into this, I had a lot of experience just really studying carefully a lot of different games and a lot of theory and things like that. Just in terms of card design, I didn't come in with as much, perhaps web design experience as a lot of, like yourself, for example, or things like that. But I had really focused for a long time on kind of fostering the ability to look at how a lot of different games handle how they make their game and their cards, and how they introduce mechanics and what they're trying to do as they transition new sets and things like that. So the main thing I would bring to the table in terms of my experiences is a lot of years of studying that kind of design theory.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, for me as well, it's been, I had an interesting entrance into the Wulven Apprentice where it was kind of a last-minute email to Gondorian saying, hey, someone's dropped, you're in. And 5 minutes later, I was in a Skype chat with people from all over the world, and we were working on our first task. And it was the craziest, because I had other plans that night and just completely just dropped them that second and was suddenly doing something, for the next 6 hours working on a website.
That first task was mental because you came into my team and we were all
right.
One of our guys is missing for the first couple of days, and then it's like, oh, here's Steve, and the first thing he says, what do I do? And it's like, well, we've got this is on the go, this is happening, go. It hit the ground running.
Yeah, it was literally 20 minutes after Gondorian sent me an email saying you're in. There was no time to think, oh, what am I gonna do, or who's my team, or anything like that. Just okay, here you go.
Yeah, no introductions, nothing.
I think that might have been an advantage. We were left hanging for a little while, and it was definitely nerve-wracking, to say the least, wondering who am I going to work with? Am I going to get along with everyone? Are we going to be – is it going to be team players too? Is it going to be guys who are prima donnas and maybe have a big head? What's going to happen? I think it might have been that element of surprise, just getting thrown into it, might have been helpful for you the first week.
I must say that having seen the show The Apprentice, I was somewhat concerned that, kind of the drama would develop of that kind of thing. But, so far everybody that we've worked with, regardless of, what's happened in the tasks, they've just all been great guys. So we've been really lucky as far as that goes.
Yeah, I've got to say the same. There's been very little conflict at all with any of the people that I've worked with. Even the guys on the other team who have been moved on to the other team, I respect all of them as competitors. So, and everyone's a great. And I've rekindled some old friendships. I hadn't talked to Sam for ages since he left ASF, and then it's like now we're best buddies again because we worked together in Wulven, in Apprentice.
The only drama so far, I think. I was involved in. I think the only drama we've had so far on the entire Wulven, just a little spat between myself and a teammate, but we fixed it right up, and no harm done, and I think our relationship is stronger now. So
yeah. I think the people who are expecting drama and everyone at each other's throats are walking away very disappointed right now.
Yeah, I expected it, honestly.
At times, in a couple of the tasks in particular where there's a lot of different opinions, it's gotten a little heated, but we've kind of kept it corralled in just because we are all really focused on just getting the task done, every task, as teams. But there's times when different opinions do kind of clash, but for the most part, we're able to keep it real civil. So, that's been relieving, to say the least.
See, I think a few things that opened people's eyes were the eliminations of Jazz and Pandev. Those going in, those had to be two of the front runners,
definitely
to most of the community. And to see people.
Yeah, I was
before this. Nobody even knew who I was. Samshay, who is that?
Who's that dude?
My post count is.
I think I was the lonely guy on TJ. So.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I suppose it's come around to me, so I best talk a little bit about myself now. I'm the jack of all trades, I guess you could say, when it comes to Shadow Era. I have arrived in the community. It took me a little while to get started, but I have jumped in full force now. I've done a little bit of everything, and in some cases a lot of certain things. I've done article writing. I've done fan fiction. I've done organised play, mostly within my guild, but I have done organised play, and of course we did organised play for Task 4, so that was a bit of an eye-opener. I've played this game since 1.25, which the version back then, Elementalis' ability was sacrifice an ally to gain 5 life, Majaya was 2 Shadow Era, draw a card, Amber and Gwen's attack bonuses were passive and constant. A lot has changed. Now, this game has become such a massive part of my life for the last couple of years, considering the amount of time I've spent on the forums, the amount of time I've dedicated to the guild. I don't think passion could ever be in question when it comes to some of the stuff that I've done. I've been in the PFG. Wow, yeah, done artistic stuff.
Yeah, on your art, I have to say that we wanted to use one of your pictures in the card challenge, but I figured it would kind of be a slap in the face figuring you were on the other team. But one of your drawings went very well for our elemental hero that we decided, and I was like, we just can't use it. But I do have to give you props on that. Some of your art is pretty badass. I've checked it out, and you got some good stuff up there, man, for sure.
I've gotten a lot better in the last couple of months, I must admit. But yeah,
just working on these things.
yeah, just keep going.
So much of it's come up with just like all these random skills that people have, just for different things. Where we need somebody who knows how to work with this strange program, or for example, for right now, record something. How do we record a thing on Skype? Like,
prior to this, I had no Skype experience whatsoever besides text messaging. Basically, I'd spoken to Gondorian once over Skype, and I'd spoken to one of my guildmates, Armit, once, and that was it. Never done recording. So this task comes out, I'm like, oh crap, I better learn what I've got to do in case I get tasked with recording all this stuff. Thankfully, I have had some minor audio editing experience, so that's come in handy. Anyway, we should probably move on from ourselves and start talking a little bit about the game itself and about the current state of quick match, because as you know, most players tend to stick to quick match as opposed to tournaments, which is a small, very select group of elite players, or just a very small group of players in general. So we've all had a look at the quick match in different ranges. Steve, would you like to take away where you've been starting, which is where the bulk of the players are?
Yeah, I was looking at about 180 to about 230 or 240, or right in there. Kind of just before sort of where you get into the really, really competitive, kind of in the upper 250 to 260 range. Where like you said, most players are. There's a lot of variety here. I looked at about, I played a bunch of matches myself and looked at a bunch of matches that as they were going on and watched them, and there is a lot of Zaladar right here. If you figure Zaladar is one of the 20 heroes, I looked at about 30 decks total, and there were 4 Zaladar decks in those 30. And I wasn't completely surprised to see that, just because, I've seen a lot of Zaladar over the last few months, and we all kind of know that that's what's there, as far as that goes. So, and they're all kind of the tempo Zaladar with some Shadow Veins and some Darkwood Wraiths and things like that. And there's something to be said for Zaladar, because he's a great all-rounder. You can go into quick match and kind of never know what you're going to face, and feel like you've got a good shot with Zaladar no matter what. What I was more surprised about was that Elementalist kind of took just as many shots as Zaladar in the matches that I saw, and I think that Zaladar is probably a little higher quantity overall, but there were also 4 Elementalist decks, so that had a lot more popularity than I realized.
Elementalis has gotten a massive buff in Dark Prophecies, just to say that. I mean, earlier in the season, I was successfully using Elementalis 280+. So, cards like Bloodthirsty, for example. Elemental has traditionally struggled going second. With Bloodthirsty and Ironhide Karash, you can take the fight to any human 3-drop, with the exception of Spirit Warden. And most of the Shadow. And then backing it up with Gargoyles and that, he's actually quite a force now.
He is. He's gotten a lot better. We all, I kind of used to think of Elementalist as kind of an easy matchup, kind of regardless of what I was playing up before Dark Prophecies. But Elementalist has definitely kind of brought the game up as far as that goes with Bloodthirsty and those kind of things.
Death Collector also helps them a lot. Death Collector and Morbid Acolyte, I think, are very good weapons for Elementalist.
Massive buffs in Shadow. Morbid Acolyte makes an exceptionally tough turn 2-3 with Karash and Gargoyle. It's just such a reliable opening for Shadow, and it's been huge for them.
Anyway, after the 2 Elementals, which apparently are dominating this meta, or at least the part that I saw, we get Jana Mist, who has, granted, seen a lot of resurgence, probably part of the World Championships and everything like that, kind of giving a lot of exposure to the Priest strategy. We see Aladwin in complete rush, always, and we see the fair version of Moonstalker, as I think we'd like to think of it.
Ally-based Moon. I must admit, because I've been playing, I've got one account in that sort of range, because I've been trying to get Logan to work. That account was 260, it's now 230, which should tell you something.
Shout out to my boy Monomax for starting the Logan revolution.
Yep, I've been doing it because of Mongoosey and his Logan challenge. Mongoosey, if you're listening, I have been less than successful. But yeah, I've seen lots of Zaladar, as you say, lots of Aladwin. I've also seen a fair few Majaya and Boris. Actually, Boris has been really common, even in the high level, even up above.
I saw a couple Majaya. Boris was non-existent in the games that I looked at.
That's
and I
interesting.
think that's strange. Yeah.
But that's interesting. One thing that I remember remember World Champion Regionals? Do you remember how we had the 3 regions? We have Europe, we had the Americas, and Asia? Australasia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
Each region had exactly the same rules, but each region produced completely different metas. So the region I was playing in Americas because it suits my playtime.
Sure.
Even though I'm in Australia, and it was all Zaladar. It was all Zaladar. It was all a lot of direct damage heroes. And Monomax took that one with a Nishaven of all things. Then cut over to Europe, I think. Yeah, Europe, and A1 Jackie took it with Amber, if I remember correctly, because there was a lot of weapon-based heroes in there.
Sure.
And then you cut back to Asia. Oh, who won? K.A. Henson won Asia, but they were using... It was a much slower meta, if I remember correctly. But I guess what I'm saying is that your play times and mine may not be coinciding, which is why we're seeing slightly different metas.
It could easily be something like that. And, after that, I was surprised to see that Amber didn't quite make as much of a mark as I would have thought, with only 2 decks in those 30. And then there was also Bane, Bow, Serena, and I saw a couple different Victor decks. I think they were on the lower side in terms of the range that I was looking at, but their Victor is present.
Unfortunately, I feel like he has become the new Logan, and considering that Logan hasn't gotten much of a buff, that's saying something.
Has he played Razy's Victor deck yet?
No. But, anything piloted by Razy is going to be good.
That's the Victor I lost to.
Yeah, I have lost to Razy. I've lost to Razy, and each time I've lost to Razy, I felt like I lost to Razy, regardless of the deck he was playing.
Everyone has lost to Razy, basically, at some point. It's like Busty is another one of those guys, where it's just like you see his name and your heart sinks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This weekend me Twain.
Yeah. Oh, God. And let's not talk.
Anyway, the list gets rounded out. with there was some Portal Majaya, which I saw one other Portal Majaya deck that I actually did pull out the win, but I was playing Portal Majaya most of these test ones that I went in, so maybe count me, I guess, in that set of decks. There was a Nishaven Rush and a solo Nishaven. So a couple different options for Nishaven there that I did see kind of being played and having some fair success.
Yeah, generally in that range, I find in the main play ranges, the meta is a little bit screwy. You can get anything. Like there's the bulk, like you say, you can expect to see Aladwin, Zaladar, so on and so forth, but you will always get those wacky builds, which is good. I love that. I love the fact that you can literally take anything into QM and expect to do okay-ish.
It speaks a lot for the strength of kind of the game as it's gotten balanced out more.
Oh, definitely.
That you can kind of bring whatever you want to the table.
Yeah. But in the higher level, once you get up higher, and because I have 2 accounts currently in the top 100, just a note, if you've ever played Syzygy, you were actually facing me. But I've found, because I tend to find that you don't get guys in the top 100 because everyone is camping, and we all know the age-old argument about that. So I tend to find most of my opponents are 250 to 260 range, just outside of the top 100 now. I got, over my last 20 games, I had 6 Aladwins, 4 Boris and 3 Amber. And that's basically the meta that I've come across at the moment. That's it. I've gotten, one-ofs of Zal, Lance, Elementalis, Great Badger, Banebow, one-ofs of heroes here and there. But when I go into Quick Match, I'm expecting to see a Boris, an Amber, or an Aladwin. So naturally, I'm playing Amber. So she's serving me all right. But yeah, in all my test games, I only had 4 opponents who were ranked 280, around about where I am. Everyone else was 250 to 260, which does speak volumes about how the current rating system, and that it's time for a reset, quite frankly. Yeah, bring on the reset.
The reset indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like after the World Championships go by, that we'll probably see that happen. So we'll get a little more of a freshening up as terms of where the rankings are, and kind of be able to catch some more people.
I'm hoping we see one long before then, to tell you the truth. When resets is the best tournament this game ever has, as the best tournament. Everyone's involved. It's so good. Anyway, now we're going to move on to Meltdown, and Tom, you've prepared some stuff around Meltdown. I must admit, I don't play it very often online, but Tom's quite a fan, so take it away.
Well, I've always kind of been a fan of the sealed deck or draft styles of play. Always been a fan of the open strategies that you can get. So that's why I kind of gravitated towards Meltdown. A lot of it does rely on what you get in your packs. There was I had 4 games where I had 3 of my 4 hero choices be weapon-based heroes and have 1 or no weapons in my packs. Those games were not very fun. 2 of the games, my other hero choice was also Victor, with a limited amount of Hunter cards.
What sort of split do you do of your packs? Because I haven't played since Dark Prophecies was released, but everything that I've heard, the best split is 3 Call of the Crystals, 1 Dark Prophecies. Is that sort of the way you go, or do you do a 2-2 split, or what?
I do a 2-2 split because I found some of the new cards in Dark Prophecies have created a lot of good combos. One of my favorites is Thick Hide with Blood Frenzy. Free draw. Take no damage. You also eliminate one of the old strategies of the opponent stalling you to death and killing you with the poisonous gas or engulfing flames.
Yeah.
You take no damage from those as well. So it can stop that little stall strategy. Moonstalker with those 2 cards was annoying as hell in Just Call the Crystals back in Meltdown. That was not very fun to play against if they had a lot of stall. I had a guy who wound up, I think he had 2 or 3 rain delays and a Shrine of Negatia with a Moonstalker deck playing that, and it was just no fun.
They're tedious, aren't they?
Yeah, that's one of the things that for a while has kind of bothered me about Meltdown is that so many of the decks that you run up against, they even if their first strategy fault, there's a lot of times that's what they fall back onto is a really efficient stall strategy, and it's just so miserable to sit there for turns and turns and turns, whether you're trying to break out of it or whether you're the one doing it, hoping that you're going to win this game, where you're just doing nothing.
Well, the thing is that, like, if you have a look at the stall cards, statistically, you should get a solo strategy more often because, cards like Rain Delay, cards like Evil Ascendant, your direct damage cards, they're all common cards. Lone Wolf is a common card. Regeneration is a common card. Healing Touch is a common card. So
yep, that's the one I was just about to say.
yeah, the Meltdown lends itself to a stall strategy. I find a stall solo strategy, and with the minimum deck size, if your opponent drops a Blood Frenzy or a Bazaar, there's another one. Bazaar is common, So you can quite happily stall a guy out. I mean, I stalled out a Moonstalker with a Banebow once.
And on the flip side of that, though, most of those stall strategies take a while to set up, so that's why I normally play a full-on aggro strategy, and I have a lot of success coming in top 20, top 10 every week from just rushing guys. That stall strategy takes 4 or 5 turns to set up, and if you just play all-out aggro and go from the beginning, just damage, and push, a lot of times ignoring their allies and just pushing damage straight through on the hero, that is the best strategy that I found to play in Meltdown.
Yeah. One thing I do find with my... Okay, while I say I don't play much Meltdown digital, I have played a lot in the physical world. And I play like 3 and 4 player Meltdown, which is... We've actually banned Lone Wolf in 4 player Meltdown because it takes over an hour before someone dies. It's terrible. But anyway, I find that with Meltdown, you tend to play your entire deck. I don't.
Yeah.
Like in Constructed, I'll look at my hand and think about what the next 5 cards might be. In Meltdown, I have to play for my entire deck because I know that with the smaller deck size, I'm going to see those cards at least relatively soon.
I like playing 2 copies of Call of the Crystals card decks in there because you get Arthile's Crypt and Infinity Core to help recycle your allies infinitely. And those cards are amazing in Meltdown. Having anything that can help you recycle anything.
I'm always looking for, the Eternal Renewals and as you're saying, the Arthile's Crypts and things like that, because it's true that a lot of the games, they go so long, you use your entire deck, and I don't know how many times I've died to mill damage in Meltdown, just because I didn't have any of that kind of stuff.
Ridiculous. I had Lily with Arthile's Crypt, recurring weapon and ally. It was stupid. She won me the game. I just kept putting her on top of the deck SS with Banebow. So Soul Seeker, just keep getting it back, remove over and over, just same thing. He couldn't stop it. He was already out of cards. He kept killing, used all his kill all throughout his deck to just deal with her.
Just deal with one.
Then he had no way to hurt anything, and just I'll gain all my life right back.
I had probably one of my favorites is aside from the classic Amber What Big T Speed Strike combo, Speed Strike with Serena is awesome.
Oh yeah,
Meltdown.
Speed Strike with Serena and Night Prowler.
You're evil. That is evil. If you could pull a combo off...
I had it.
that is half a hand gone in a single turn. 2 in the graveyard and 2 into your hand. That is evil. I love it.
I had that in one of my games that I was playing for testing out for this podcast. It was very fun.
I imagine. Now, it was
Rage quit.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe it.
Yeah, and then you use Shredder Vengeance to kill their draw engine. Anyway, we should probably actually move on from the game, the actual game itself, and move on to a little bit to the story behind the game. And this is one of those areas that hasn't been explored a lot, or hasn't been revealed is probably the word I should say. So, we decided to take it upon ourselves to bring in the Master of Lore for Shadow Era, which is Nacho Cheese, and also known as Kevin, and I'll be talking to him around the lore itself. So, now, Kevin, so far, we've only had little snippets of the hero background. When can we expect to see more history around the major players of Shadow Era?
Well, we've kind of been playing it close to the chest on purpose thus far, mostly because we don't want to make a promise and then break it when it comes to the lore, because with lore especially, fans either don't care about it or they're so hardcore about it that if you break a promise, they'll be showing up on my doorstep with death threats. So, unfortunately, at this point, all I can really say is soon, with a trademark at the end of it. But I can promise you that we do have some awesome things coming for our lore lovers in the very near future.
Oh, excellent. Me personally, I'm looking very much forward to hearing what you're doing with the rogues, and Majaya in particular. I think there's a lot of room to play with those characters. I
absolutely agree. I think it was a lot of fun coming up with their personalities and like how they interact with everything just based on the cards, and I think that everyone's going to be really happy with the way it came out.
Oh, excellent. Now, how do you feel Carmilla, the latest hero, is going to fit into the story? We've seen a snippet of her origins, how she came about, but what's going to happen next?
I feel that she's going to fit in really, really well, because the big thing to remember about this isn't some small little battle that's happened in like one particular country. This is a war that has consumed an entire world, fighters from which have come from all over the multiple worlds. Because of that, so far we've only seen the story told from 20 heroes and their allies, but there's so much more going on in the world, and Carmel is kind of a reflection of that. You see with her that there's not just these 20 heroes running around, that there are dozens, if not hundreds more out there fighting this fight, bringing to the battle. So I think Carmel is a really good way of showing that. As for how she's going to interact in the story, it's going to be interesting because she's the first hero that we've had that's playing for both teams and for neither team at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to see. You know, is she going to be like she's a third party? Is it going to be a purely selfish reason, or is there going to be higher motivations? Or I'm really interested to see where this one goes.
Well, it's also important to remember that while she is a third party, she's not going to be the only third party that we come across. No war is ever only two sides.
No, definitely not. Lots of turncoats, which we're already starting to see with the class cards.
And if you look back, even in Call of the Crystals, we had Belladonna, who's a human fighting for the shadows.
Yeah, exactly. Moving away from the characters for a moment, tell us a little bit more about the major regions in Baylor. Like, we've heard a few. We've got Layar, Gaderi, so on and so forth. But it's obvious that you've got very fixed ideas in mind for each region and the sort of people who are within those regions. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is you may have generalizations about it, like you said, fixed types of people. But the thing about Balor is it is a world. So while there are things like that you could say about each area, generalizations, there's always going to be exceptions to that thing. Like you may have Gaderi, which is primarily a desert area with nomads and tribes and things like that. You may still have someone there who's highly educated and wants to break away from the tribal respects. So you're going to have variances. But in terms of the actual question as to more about them, you've got 6 nations spread across 5 continents. Okay. You've got the Gaderi, which are mostly desert tribes, nomads. They're considered the less civilized. They're barbarians, as we would call them. Just to the north and across the ocean from them, you've got Lyth. Lyth was actually founded when Arthail tried to conquer the Gaderi. He sent the troops up north through the mountains to come across an ice bridge, and they got trapped there. With no one to bring them home and lost on the few supplies, they had to settle down for the long haul, eventually forming a nation. Okay. Just to the south of them, you've got Iram, which is primarily just this wasteland of rocks and unfarmable land. They survive by actually training mercenaries and selling the mercenary services to the other nations as guards, protectors, to train their militaries, just supplemental military. It's important to note that while there's not been a war in Balor in almost 1,000 years, you've had minor skirmishes here and there, and there's always going to be bandits that people need protecting from.
Yeah. 1,000 years of peace, that's a pretty good record for a world.
It really is. It hasn't been a battle since or a major battle since the last war, which was Arthile's death.
Yeah.
Everyone was so afraid of another war breaking out that they signed all these treaties to keep it from happening.
Oh, okay.
Then you've got Lair, which is where most of Dark Prophecies and Call of the Crystals has happened in. Lair was where Arthile was from. They launched the last Great War, which is why everyone's so keen on keeping Lair exactly where they are and not going any further forward.
Okay.
They're also the one that most resemble your typical fantasy kingdom. They've got the castles and the knights and all of that. That's all from Lair.
Mm-hmm. So they're sort of like, they feel like the major power player in the region, which is why everyone else is trying to keep them down, sort of thing?
They're politically very established. They had an army that almost completely conquered the world, and they have a history of trying to be too big for their britches.
Like the Lannisters from Game of Thrones.
Very good comparison. Call of the Crystals and Dark Prophecies, we don't get to see much of that because as those sets begin, their king has died and the shadow has primarily taken foot in Lair, so they're a broken kingdom that's been completely torn apart by this war already. And then we jump across the ocean, and then we come to Voza and Elos. Voza's a little more northern. They're primarily cityscape at this point. They consider themselves to be the most civilized. They don't have the largest army, but they protect their peace by using a group of assassins known as the Hands of the King. Notably, it was the Hand of the King, the personal assassin of the king, that killed Arthile in the last war to end it.
Yes. Yes, I remember.
Voza is very, very handy with their assassins. Some of the major heroes are actually from Voza as assassins, Serena most notably.
Serena, I was thinking Lance as well, but he always struck me more freelance operative.
Lance is more freelance, but we'll get to that as the stories get a little bit closer. But yeah, Lance is definitely more elite freelance. Serena, 100% Hand of the King. She joins the war at the king's request.
Oh, okay.
But so they've always managed that, and then they have a sister nation in Elos just to the south of them. Mm-hmm. Elos is mostly like verdant lands. They primarily survive by raising horses, and that's what their cavalry is from. So Rider of Elos is representative of the cavalries that Elos holds.
A little bit more about the people of Baelor. Is it that they worship the 7 gods? Now that's been mentioned a few times. The 7 here, the 7 there. Yeah, we really don't know much about them besides the names of a few of them. Eunaxio was one that was mentioned quite recently in your Templar focus. Can we get a bit more information about the gods of Baelor? Who worships what? I don't think even all the names have been released yet.
Interesting fact, there are actually far more than 7 gods in Baelor. The 7 are a specific set of gods in Lair. All the different countries have their own religions, and even more than that, in some areas you'll find other smaller pockets of religions or cults that have popped up.
Okay, like Aldmor?
So like
Is an
the Aldmor. They're a minor cult that come from another area. The Twilight. Eunaxio and Vozit are actually not members of the 7. Vozit is the king god of the country Vozit, and Elos is the king god of the country Elos. According to both their lores, Vozit and Elos are brothers. But these brothers, one is good, one is evil, and the countries go to war constantly because they can't decide on which way is right. Eunaxio is actually the name that the Church of Eunaxio gave to both Voza and Elos, claiming that they're not brothers, they're the same person with 2 names. So the Church of Eunaxio actually tries to keep the balance between the 2 nations by holding the faith that they're together.
All right.
Even than that, though, not every country has gods. Gadari worship spirits and they honor their dead. They actually think that the land itself has spirits that aid them, very tribal-oriented, very, not really sure how to say it, Native American style, where they think that spirits and the life itself grant them their strength. Life is actually such a brutal land that the people there believe there's no way a god could have created it, so they're primarily an atheist nation.
Okay. So you got like a nice spread there, and you're sort of trying to represent, it feels like you're trying to represent the ideas of our world in Baelor in terms of our religious diversity. You know, you got monotheistics, polytheistics, non-theistics all appearing in Baelor as well. which is a little bit more depth than a lot of fantasy realms.
It's always been one of my huge pet peeves that fantasy realms will be have these countries that are separated from each other by thousands of years, yet they still worship the exact same gods and speak the same languages. I think that level of diversity is required to not only make it believable, but to create the depth of something that, especially with what we're trying to do with these card games, you can't create cards with themes and lore in them unless you have themes and lore to back them up.
Yeah.
So there definitely is a lot of that in the Balor.
Oh,
And bear in mind, these are just the religions of Balor. The Shadow Worlds have religions as well.
that would be an interesting topic. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit off track and sort of focus on a Shadow. There are multiple Shadow Worlds. And yeah, it's one of those things. It's a couple have been mentioned, like the Minotaurs and the Wulven come from the same world, and the Terra Dunes people, the Ravagers, come from another world, and the names escape me at the moment. But there's sort of little things that have been touched on. How many worlds are there?
The thing about it is, the Shadow are not some great allegiance that's come to invade Balor. They're these dozens of worlds that have been pulled into Balor by the Shadow Gates, and the Man of Shadows is uniting them. So how many worlds are there? There could be up to thousands. They have no clue. All we know for now is whenever a Shadow Gate opens, it connects to a Shadow World, and these Shadow Worlds will begin pouring through. That's why you'll see as expansions comes out, new creatures come through that you've never seen before.
Yeah. So there's one Shadow Gate per world, is it? Or multiple Shadow Gates?
There can be multiple Shadow Gates per the same world, but there's not typically very many.
Ah, okay. Speaking of the Man of Shadows, we know nothing about him besides a name. We don't even know if he's human or not. Is there anything you can give away about the main antagonist of this game?
That's one of the things that I think everyone likes about him at the moment, is the fact that he does have such a mystique about him. Who is he? Where is he even from? We don't even know if he's a Shadow World, if he's from a human world. We don't even know if he has a name besides the Man of Shadows. I think that those questions are a major driving force, but I can promise this. They do get answered in the very near future.
So in the next expansion?
All I can say is very near future.
Okay. Now, what was the inspiration behind some of the names in the lore?
Well, it's important to know, and I don't know if most people know this, but in most game companies, they don't hire actual writers to write the stories and names of their things. They just have the team that's creating it doing it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things that are linked with the modern real world, that's a byproduct of that. You don't have people who seek out the creative drive to do it. You have people who are just trying to name things they've already created. In saying that, I still can't take complete credit for all of the names. GDC, every member of the design team, Kyle, they've all pitched in at different points to help out with names. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I've got books, I've got magazines, I've got websites that are just devoted to helping come up with fantasy names or to look for sources on them or how to come up with them. And if I'm really in a pinch, and this is like my trademark secret, I use this on all my D&D characters now, write out all the consonants in the alphabet and roll a dice until you're happy.
That is a really interesting way to do it.
It's come up with some of the best names in the game so far.
I like that. I might keep that for some of my fan fiction.
It works. It really does.
Now, who's your favorite hero from a game and a lore perspective?
It'd probably have to be Zaladar.
Zaladar.
The elementals in general have just an amazing backstory, just such cool things going on with them. And beyond that, like the actual revelations, the things that bring the elementals into the game, the stuff we haven't revealed yet, it's just going to be mind-boggling how awesome the elementals really are. They're one of the things that separate us from other card games. Their art, their style, everything about them is unique to Shadow Era, and I don't think their story is any different.
That's good, because I must admit, I am a huge Zaladar fan, as you're probably aware, and I'd love to learn a little bit.
I think a lot of people are Zaladar. We've noticed the conventions too. Zaladar tends to be pretty popular. Like I said, it's one of the things that separates Shadow Era from traditional card games, or not traditional card games, the other competitions for the market. Yeah. And so having Zaladar and Elementalist on our sides, they both really, really help. But Zaladar, everyone loves him. He's also one of my favorite for playing with. I don't know if you knew this, but I did actually used to play the game pretty frequently.
Yes, I remember you used to have the nickname the Millmeister.
I had a
Back
Zealot
a long way.
that started off aggressive, then went to mid-range control, and finally could go into a full-out mill if I needed to late game. I was very proud of it.
It's pretty surprising that you managed to do that back then with a card pool of like 120 cards. And Evil Ascendant didn't exist and those sorts of things. A lot of the mill cards.
Evil Ascendant, Deathmate Stadius, when those things started coming out, it became harder for me to build my deck because there were so many new mill tech I wanted to put in, but I just couldn't fit them and keep my control and aggression.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit I've experimented with mill a lot, but I tend to stick to the Shadow Warriors for mill simply because I can't find any other way to play them properly at the moment. Tell us about your favourite character.
My favorite character is probably going to have to be Arthile. He doesn't get represented much in the game because he is such a background player, but that's kind of what I love about him. He's this tactician. He shaped so much of the world. Life wouldn't exist without him. The world entire idea of how warfare is exists because of him. He's the only undead in the entire game so far that's not from Shuth. He's the only one from Balor. And so much has been forged by just a tactician, but he's completely fine. You'll have to forgive the pun here. Just to remain in the shadows, just to stay in the background.
Yeah, I must admit, he is very much. If you start to delve into the lore, he is the motivator behind the game in a lot of respects. Probably the number 2 motivator behind the Man of Shadows himself, who resurrected him. It would be interesting to see Arthile as kind of like a unique, legendary Aeon-style character appearing in the game eventually. But Word of the Prophet is a depiction of Arthile, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is him after his resurrection.
Ah, okay. He's looking alright for a guy who's 1,000 years old.
Well, the magic that was used to resurrect him is extremely powerful.
Yeah. Well, it does come from the Man of Shadows, who is seen as Arthile is at least 1,000 years old. The Man of Shadows would also be at least 1,000 years old, I'm guessing. Or did the resurrection happen a long time after?
The resurrection happened recently. It actually happened after magic began to appear in Balor.
Okay. Yeah, which was...
So we actually see Arthile being resurrected late in the game of Call of the Crystals, so all the depictions of that begin showing up because he becomes a major player in Dark Prophecies.
Okay, so around the time of Call of the Crystals events, Arthile hadn't actually come back. At that point,
correct.
It was...
As the war began, of Shadows realized he needed a tactician to help him win a war. While he had force, he needed tactics. So he went to the greatest tactician Balor has ever produced. He got Arthile.
Yeah. Now all the timeline thing is all starting to come together and starting to make a little bit more sense. Now, one question, I know that this has come up in the forums a few times, and a lot of people say, can we ever expect to see dragons in Shadow Era? Any kind of dragon?
I'm not going to ever say no because I will never take anything off the table.
Yep.
I will say that if they ever do appear, they have to have their own Shadow Era twist. And I will also say that every member of this design team has been a fan at some point, so never think our wishes are that far from your own.
Oh, that's good. And with cards like Dragon's Tooth, to me that's proof that the dragons are in the world, or are in at least mythology within Balor. Otherwise, even if it's not a Dragon's Tooth, it would not be named the Dragon's Tooth.
We like to drop tidbits for people, but I don't want to spoil too much for them.
All right. I guess that comes to my next question. Is there anything you want to let slip about upcoming stories?
Want to? Oh, absolutely. But in reality, pacing matters so much to a story that if I just went off on the tangent about everything I wanted to, it would kind of ruin it for everyone. Yeah, so I've got to kind of hang on to it, which I got to tell you, secrets and patience, not my two biggest strong suits. I'm a little too honest and just want to get everything done. But what I can promise is that everyone gave such good reception and we had such just happiness over the 12 weeks of lore that events like that are going to become more common, as are lengthier fictions.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's excellent to hear. I would like to see some more origin stories like Carmilla. along those.
Definitely are going to have more of those. We're also talking about possibly doing more the characters and profile style, but not just for characters, for things like events in the story, places. We are looking at possibly bringing those to bear as well.
Speaking of events, would you be looking at like event cards of a sort, almost like I don't know how you'd even describe them, but yeah, cards based around like the events that are happening or have happened in Baylor.
Well, you do already see that. There are those kinds of things already in the game. Things like a legend rises and a legend falls. These are representative of the events that are going on throughout the game.
Yeah.
Can we ever expect new card types? I don't want to say yes, because obviously I'm not one of the primary card designers. I don't want to put Soothslayer and Anorak on the blast here, or GDC, Jumbo. I don't want to put everyone on blast throwing this out there. But I will say that one of the staples of TCGs is that new card types eventually have to arrive.
Yeah.
So I would not be willing to write them off.
Okay. No, that's good to hear. That's good to hear, because I know Shadow Era never intends to go down the interrupt instant path like Magic the Gathering, but seeing more card types would be like is obviously needed at some point.
Eventually. It's an eventuality. I wouldn't say it's going to be like in the next set or the set after that or anything, but eventually new card types are definitely possible.
Yeah. All right. I have one more question. Cheddar or mozzarella?
Honestly, Pepperjack.
Pepperjack?
Pepperjack is my stuff.
Oh, I'm a straight up vintage cheddar. I like that really strong bite, and just I like hard cheeses. I can't handle bries. I can't handle any of that sort of stuff.
I'm the same way. Interesting fact, my wife and I have discovered how to make actual macaroni and cheese, like not from a box, but actually like grate the cheese, make our own cheese sauce, and it takes just about as long.
You are about 10 steps ahead of me. I burn water. I am hopeless when it comes to the kitchen.
Well, it's because down there where you are, the water spins the wrong way, so it burns too quick.
Oh, that's
Here
it.
in America, it spins the right way, so we have no problems cooking.
Oh,
So it's not your fault.
This is going to turn into that Simpsons episode, isn't it? We've even installed toilets that allow the water to spin the American way, sir. Oh, gee.
America.
Thank you very much for your time, Kevin. It has been a blast, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of what you come up with and what the rest of the design team come up with.
And I'm looking very forward to how everyone responds to it, and so far you guys have been so great, I cannot wait to get more into your hands.
Okay. All right. Once again, I must say thank you to Nacho. That was an extremely informative interview. There's a lot of little tidbits in there. If you listen closely, he's basically given us a good idea of what Baylor looks like, as well as some origin stories around Serena and some little tidbits around some of the other characters. So thanks very much, Nacho. Once again, it was a pleasure talking to you. Now, before we head out, I think all of us have been influenced by not just the game, but by the community. And I know for me personally, that is the big thing that's kept me in this game, is the community and the great people that are within it. So, I'm going to reserve this time just to give a few shout outs to some of the people who've influenced me and the other guys who've influenced them. And I'd like to start off by saying thanks to all of my guildies in ETC and ASF, and in particular guys like Ahmet, 476 and Patterson and Fudalil and Books, BDK16. You guys are all fantastic. Badugo, you've all been with me since basically the beginning. Huge thank you. Also to guys like Raf Majir and Witsky and Busty and Razy, of course. I have to say thank you to Razy, just because he loves this sort of stuff. Mongoosey, you are a legend, and you've inspired me to pick up Logan once again, and just way too many more people to name. All of you have helped me become the player I am today and kept me in this game and kept me so dedicated to it that it takes up far more than it should in my life, than any one game should. And of course, all the guys on the design team having had the chance to speak to most of you now one-on-one, I've got to say you're all great people. And that's me. I have blathered way too much, so I'll pass the floor over to the other guys.
Yeah, sure. I just wanna throw it out and just put it up to Zig Big Wig, who is now Heisenberg, I suppose. Just for being such a great guy. I ran into him in a tournament one time. I was playing in one of his tournaments actually, and then he recruited me to BP. Shortly after there, just after we just chatted in IRC for almost an hour, and what a great guy, and who has introduced me to a lot of different people and things around Shadow Era. So that guy's been really important in the last few months of me kind of just branching out into different parts of the community. And then also a shout out to Gondorian, who's just been so nice and easy to kind of work with and really helpful throughout all these tasks and all of this.
I don't think anyone in this game cannot be grateful to Gondorian for something. Honestly.
He's
absolutely
the nicest guy ever, too. I mean, really, really helpful with everything in the Wulven Apprentice, and for him to give us that interview at 1 o'clock in the morning, I mean, just a great guy.
Yeah, the dedication just is insane from him. Sorry to interrupt you, Steve. Carry on.
Yeah. No, that was what I had. Gondorian. No one can say enough about Gondorian. So, anyway, yeah. What do you think, Tom?
Well, first I'm going to start with Sean Praybird. His articles were what helped get me to the level that I am today. I mean, when I started playing, I read his articles to learn more about Shadow Era, coming from other games and still being in a mindset of those other games where Shadow Era is completely different, and I needed to learn how to think for this game. And his articles really helped me do that, and I wanted to, big personal thank you to Sean for that. I wouldn't be where I am today without reading those, man. Really, thank you.
No worries. That's why I do the articles and that sort of stuff. Because when I started, there wasn't much of that around. It was a lot more secretive, the knowledge of the game. And that's the sort of thing, it's one of those things you just want to give back. And I've still got more eventually.
Well, I mean, that's why I try to give back now, too, because, I've noticed that was one of the things that drew me to this game was how open the community was. Like, everybody has helped me so much, and especially, like, I just want a big shout-out to all my guildmates and TJ, like, Minato, Bayushi, those guys were two of the guys that helped, recruit me to TJX when my guild Betrayal folded back in the day. Betrayal Fender, one of my old guildmates who I took to TJ with me. Big shout out to him. Razy, everybody, Goosey, Jet for starting the whole thing. I can't even name everybody, but, I wouldn't be where the player I am today without those guys too. So big shout out to them. And people like Colossal from BP, who's just always helpful to everybody. I mean, I've had a few problems with trying to run some tournaments in the past, and Colossal was always there to help. So, I got to definitely a big shout out to him and everybody. You know who you are. If I didn't name you, you know who you are.
There's more. I must mention Zao86. He is a champion.
Yeah.
And he has been so helpful
Absolutely.
for new players. And he has basically really taken on that role more so than I ever did, because I used to be a lot more new player focused, and I've sort of moved more into the more complex aspects of Shadow Era with my articles and the like. But Zao has really gone in there, and I don't think there's many people in the game that he has not helped in one way or another. And yeah, and Colossal definitely, even if it's just for being humorous. He is a cracker, that man.
Absolutely.
And he runs great too. He's a great TO.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
absolutely.
And there are so many more people. Me personally, I would use an hour up thanking everyone. So basically, I'm just going to say thank you to the whole community. Every single one.
Yeah. I can definitely echo those sentiments. Thank you to everyone in the
Absolutely.
community.
That's one of the things I've liked the most about Shadowware is the excellent community and how nice and welcoming everybody is. So that's been great. Just we wouldn't even be doing this if there weren't such a great community to show it to. So
that's exactly right. I mean, this is all about. For me, this is about giving back to the community. I mean, I love the game so much. I just want to help shape it, and that's what we all want.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Anyway, before this gets too mushy, I can already hear Unruler poking fun at me. We better sign off. So thank you once again for listening, making it all the way to the end of this one. So from the team at Random Heroes, myself, Tom /Betrayal for Life, and Steve /Samshin999. Thank you once again for listening, and have a great time in the game. Oh, one last thing. Big shout out to Epic Dan, who provided us with the music for the introduction to the podcast. Be sure to check him out on YouTube. Anyway, that's it.
Good, thanks,
Goodbye,
guys.
everybody. Have fun.
See you later.